Welcome to Midnight Menu Plus One. I'm Ray Canada.
And I'm Margot Moss.
We're here at Ted's Frost Top on Claiborne and Calhoun in Uptown New Orleans. Once a week, Margot and I meet here at Ted's, and we invite a member of New Orleans restaurant and food community to join us. And we invite them to bring along a friend, a plus one. We never know who their plus one's going to be. It could be a friend, a neighbor, a family member, a masseuse, a fellow restaurant business colleague. Well, in just a few moments, we're going to be talking with our special guest, and we're very excited to have with us tonight at Midnight Menu Plus One a man who has scaled the GNO Bridge no less than 3 times. Did you know that? He has opened restaurants in Napa Valley and Florida and New Orleans, and I'm also told that reportedly he was once beaten up by the blues great Ray Charles. So I can't wait to meet such a man. But while we eagerly anticipate our special guest, Margot, and we'll be revealing who that is in a moment, I'm wondering how your weekend went.
It was pretty quiet, but it was all right. My husband's band played at Ferret Fest.
I know they played at 3:30, right?
Yes.
Yeah, we had to leave at about 1 o'clock. I had to miss it. Yeah.
Well, it was
it.
freezing. I was not a great supporter. I only lasted like 5 songs because my fingers were freezing off and my nose. And I felt terrible, but they sounded great.
Did you eat at the Ferret Market?
No.
I love the food at Ferret Market. Woody's Fish Tacos is like my favorite fish taco on the planet. And I always get that, but then my kids get last 2 times they got the crepes. They have that crepes.
Oh, yes, crepes a la carte.
Right, the one that's on the campus at Tulane. Mm-hmm. Very good. And they have some different things they make there that I hadn't had before at the regular store. So,
what did you have an exciting weekend? Anything?
I was here at Ted's yesterday.
For the
car show. Yeah, I love that car show. I met one of my best friends, Dustin, when I was here last year at the car show, and I love seeing all the old cars. Seems like there were more this year than last few times you had it.
And what was the coolest car you had?
Well, every time it's always the '57 Bel Air. There's one that blows the rest away. It's just not fair. That to me, it's called Dust Pearl is the color. It's like a pink and it has the fins. It's all original. And my friend Chip, Dustin's brother, owns that car. But I also love that there was a purple. Was that like I don't know what make it was, but it was awesome with the souped-up engine. The hood was open the whole time. It was awesome, and there were a lot of really neat cars. So it was fun.
Good.
I love that event. If people, are you going to have that once a month? Is that the deal?
I think they're going to try and start having it regularly. Yeah.
So on Sundays, right, in the afternoon. That's something people should come out to.
Absolutely.
And they can have a burger and a root beer and the rest here at Ted's.
And cruise the cars.
That's
a good
awesome.
time. Well, I think our guest has walked in.
All right.
David Campbell.
David Campbell, he is, I'm told that in addition to fighting with celebrity elderly blind men, he served in the Marines, and he climbs bridges, and he opens restaurants, and he's also a part-time server at Jaque Imo's, and most recently head of his own effort, the GBC Tours in our city. The amazing David Campbell.
Hi there.
Welcome.
Hi there.
Thank you so much, David, for joining us.
You're welcome. It was an honor to be here.
Can our producer get you a frosty root beer?
Why not?
To get you, all right.
Thank you, producer. I know that, producer.
You know, that's a home recipe here. It's made in-house at the Frost Top from 1929 or some.
1927. It's made in Ohio. It's the original Frost Top recipe.
So Babe Ruth was on the Murderers Row, the 27 Yankees, winning 110 games. World War II was many years in the future, right? Like Hoover was president, and that's when this was invented.
1927?
Yeah, who was president in 27?
2 years before the fall. Was that who?
Yeah.
Who was the one at the helm when it all went down?
I think it was Hoover. Yeah.
Hoover?
They called it Hoovervilles because of that, right?
That's right.
Yeah. So that's when this stuff was invented. That's a long time ago.
Yeah, Frost Top root beer.
Frost Top root beer was being invented.
Coming up on a century.
It's not made in this Ted's Frost Top in Ohio in a brewery.
Okay, but it's made just for Frost Tops, basically.
Yes, Frost Top. It's their blend.
Wow. That is really cool.
I just made some insane soup last night and had a nice little meal. It was just such a cold day yesterday.
What kind of soup?
I've never had one cooking class, but I've always loved to cook. And I think just growing up the way that I did and with so many different exposures. But to me, like whenever I've been asked to cook a meal, my mom makes me cook all the time. But whenever I cook, I never tell anybody what I'm going to make, essentially till I walk in the store. because I'll find something that'll grab my eye and then it'll go on and on. But I was at Whole Foods yesterday, and this guy Pat, who's one of the cooks at House of Blues back in the opening team days, we still are a family. We're really close with each other. We all stay in touch, and we just had a reunion and all. But he works the barbecue line, so I was doing brisket. He had brisket and all that, so he gave us a taste. We started walking. I was like, cold weather, let's do like a really good soup. So my brain just started clicking, and so there was some cream of corn, like the soup, like the Amy's, like they have the butternut squash and all these things where they had corn. But we got smoked sausage, not brisket, but smoked sausage, the corn, potatoes, cumin, fresh cilantro. I got some poblano peppers. Just went back and started chopping onions, sauteed the onions and the sausage in a pot, rolled that with the corn stew, kind of started that up out of water. And then we did the potatoes, and then we took some Patron tequila and marinated with olive oil the poblano peppers, and then charred them on the grill, chopped them up, added them into the stew, cilantro,
Sounds
everything. And then
like
at the
a
end,
comfort.
we added a block of cheddar cheese that just melted right in with that whole thing. And then I diced up jalapenos and fresh cilantro as a garnish on top. It was like this German Southwestern kind of creative.
You were inspired to do all this because the temperature finally dropped below like 40 degrees for 5 minutes yesterday, right? For the first time all year, right?
I don't like the humidity here.
This shows you like New Orleans. Like right now, if it was 40 degrees in Chicago, they would be calling that balmy, I mean, it would be, some of the snow would start to melt.
Well, growing up in Belgium, this to me is perfect weather. So, I mean, I work at Jaque Imo's, and this one of our hostesses, Kat, she's been there for quite a while. And I'll come into work with T-shirt and shorts, and she'll say, "David, where are your clothes?" And I'll just laugh like I just don't. This is great weather. This is awesome.
Well, now, before you get much further, tell us about what GBC stands for your tours. What is that?
I never really figured out what I was that I wanted to do because I always liked doing so many different things. If somebody looked at my resume, I think I'm crazy, or either don't believe me, or else they're like, what in the world? But for me, growing up the way that I did, it was just such a mix of everything. I had such an extreme of so many things, and it was fantastic. So I think as I kind of got to a point of trying to tie all these interests together, it just started to make sense. But growing up, we left here when I was 6, moved to Dubai. And that was insane. As I tell people, it was like living in a Dr. Seuss book. This is before Dubai turned into Disneyland. It was, a third world country. With this
it was Yemen, basically,
coming from under the ground,
it's like living in the desert in Saudi Arabia or something.
The prayers, the souks. I mean, I'd see Arabs using the bathroom in the beach, in the ocean, in the water.
Right.
The whole right hand, left hand thing, all these things. But then we went to Belgium. But my father was a Marine infantry officer before he got married, and my mom was big in the culinary world and loved gardens and palaces and all the cultural things. She taught music, was a choir director at the church, all these things. So for me, it was all these different interests. So GBC ended up rolling into this gastronomy, battlefields, and culture. That's these 3 different things to do.
Gastronomy, battlefields, and culture. Okay.
So like cultures and festivals. It originally started as gardens, battlefields, and cuisine, because my first client was the Louisiana Garden Club Federation. So I did several tours with them. Doing, we did cultural events. We did the Pasadena Tournament of Roses Parade. We did a Texas wildflower thing. But these are all things I did with my mother, but I also loved history. And then the last one that really kind of prompted the genesis of this thing that I'm doing now.
So these tours all in New Orleans?
No, these are actually in Europe. But I'm developing one for New Orleans because I realized that there's a lot here. There's a documentary on the PBS station, on the local LPB, whatever, about the influence of Germans in New Orleans, and it just blew my mind. And Germany's probably my favorite country on the planet, and I love America too, but Germany, I love history and I love all of that. I always loved the charm of it, and it was funny when I worked. A lot of the American military veterans. I mean, Ambrose would talk about this all the time. All these American soldiers coming back from Europe after World War II, their favorite country was Germany, and a lot of Americans kind of miss that. It's always it's Italy or it's France, the more romantic places, but Germany is fantastic.
And what do you like about it?
So I like the order to it. I like the cleanliness of it. I think Texas, my dad's a Texan, so I get the Texas thing. And there's always like the Texas, Louisiana, or California, Texas sort of clashes that there are. But, the whole don't mess with Texas. Or you go into Austin and you've got this great, lots of music festivals, lots of food, lots of outdoors. It's really hearty culture, and that was very much the German American influence in that area. Like the chicken fried steak is Wiener Schnitzel. It's just evolved. But when I started to see this and started looking at the pieces, it was like, oh my gosh. So these things started to make sense. But New Orleans, this documentary had a lot of discussion about that. But, you know, with the Battle of New Orleans here and then the Civil War Museum, I mean, there's a lot of stuff about the World War II Museum, and that's great. And I worked for Stephen Ambrose, and I walked through that place when it was still the shell of a brewery. But there's still these other layers of history. And to me, you understand more of one when you start to look at more. You know more about a person when you get to meet their family members. And it's kind of the same thing with history. So one of the things that I also want to do is, I mean, even our Storyville, that was affected by World War I. The head American commander shut Storyville down because he didn't want all these U.S. troops going off to Europe with VD. So, and then like General Pershing Street used to be Berlin Street. So they changed it to, and my grandfather was Pershing's interpreter because he was a French American from living in central Louisiana. But he rode around with Pershing in a little sidecar and did these things, but it just all started clicking after quite a while of trying to figure out, oh, I like this, but to put it all into one. So I put this Beer and Battlefields tour together for Europe, and then I'm looking at doing the one here, but Europe it's really amazing to go there and then see how we have so much of that and how we've affected them back, because it's not a one-way street in either direction, you know, but that's where it began. So it's kind of a culmination of all these different interests. And, you know, there's a lot of history companies or history tours that just do military history. They do a great Band of Brothers tour or whatever. Or you may have some really exclusive foodie tours, but to really get all of it and do it all, why be in Europe and not really appreciate the great local cuisine? And any good New Orleanian knows where you go eat. And you don't go eat at the touristy places on Bourbon Street. You know, you like go to these little hole-in-the-walls. Go eat a po' boy at Dom Lacey's, or, you know, it's off the beaten path thing. So that's what I would like to do with Europe, because I know Europe, a lot of places of Europe on that same kind of level. So anyway.
All right. Wow. All right. Well, there's about 15 side roads I'd like to take from all that. Okay, so you dropped so many names in there. So
it's a story. It's
all right.
A journey.
So Stephen Amber. Wait a second. So you were a Marine.
Yes.
Reserve.
Yeah.
So you said okay.
Yep.
So how did Ray Charles beat you up? I don't understand that part.
It was his backup.
I'm exaggerating, yeah, a little bit. Okay, well that's not much better though, is it?
Yeah, we were.
At least they were sighted.
Well, I don't think they were expecting to see me, and I wasn't expecting to see them because they were half clothed. But they were in our tent, and we were in Mallorca. I was just this.
That's in Spain, isn't it?
Yeah, it's this little island off the coast of Spain, out in the Mediterranean. It's this beautiful spot, and I was working at the House of Blues, and was just this eager little puppy to want to get in the music business and learn all about that and get involved. And I sang in choir all the way through college as well. I love music, but I always had that other part of my brain that said, what am I going to do with this if I'm not good at this? So I never pursued it as something on my own, but I always had respect for those that did. So I got to meet this artist, Keb Mo. He was playing at the House of Blues, and my girlfriend wanted a picture signed for her mother. So I had his name from the database and stuff, and I just went over there, like a cold call, whatever, but I just went by and said hello. And
at House of Blues or in Spain?
No, at House of Blues.
Okay.
But I wasn't at House of Blues. This was here in New Orleans. He was living here. He was married to someone and was living here in New Orleans. He recorded a couple albums while he was living in New Orleans.
Okay.
So I got to meet him, and they needed someone to help out with their as an assistant. I was just like, I'll do anything. I wanted to learn. So he brought me on, and I started doing the tour book, and they were going to France, Switzerland, Germany, and Spain, back to Germany, and then back to the States.
Okay.
And I was doing this tour book, helping him put it together, going, oh my God, what a gift to get to do this. And the next day I went back into work, and he nicknamed me Junior, because I was like this little, it was like a nice version of Opie. But I was just this clean-cut little white cracker and working these blues heavyweights. But he said, Junior, you want to go to Europe with us? And I was like, are you kidding me? So I got a chance to go. So we were in Europe, but we got to Mallorca, and we were opening for Ray Charles in Mallorca. Just what an insane, it was just an incredible experience. But our drummer broke one of the drumsticks, and he needed a drumstick out of his bag. So I went flying into our tent to get it, but they assumed our band was all on stage, so I had to have 2 dressing rooms for Ray's crew. So
you saw some girls naked, and
I kind of did, and they kind of chased me out of the tent. But I wasn't trying to go. I was in there before I realized. My mind was just, I got to get this drumstick, and I was just in the zone. But that was that. Not really. Could have been more exciting, I guess, but it was just you opened with Georgia on my mind, and I'm sitting between these 2 Spanish PR girls, and I'm just in the middle of the Mediterranean going, this is just slapping myself like, this is crazy, And I guess life has been a lot like that sometimes.
So how long, you left New Orleans, you were born here?
Yes.
And you left New Orleans when you were
Born at
6 months?
Southern Baptist
no,
Hospital.
6
I was
years?
6 years old.
6 years old. Okay.
Halfway through first grade.
The one on
And-
Napoleon?
Yep.
Okay, yeah. That's Oshner Baptist now? Or,
Yeah.
And so your family went. What spurred them to move?
My dad was working for a company. I don't think they're even here anymore. They're all in Houston. But it was during the big petroleum boom, and this was J. Ray McDermott.
Okay.
And we moved to. He got transferred to Dubai. He was offered a position to go with his boss to Dubai, and my dad was actually reluctant to go. And I always attribute it to my father, being the little male that I am. Sometimes we forget how strong and great, amazing women are. And it took me a little while to realize how great my mom was. But now she's my favorite. But she was the one that was kind of proud of my father and said, when could we ever have an opportunity like this for our kids to do this? So off we went.
And this was in the 80s, early 80s or 70s?
It
When
was in 73.
73.
73 to 76 we were in.
And where was your mom from?
My mom was from a little place called Montclair, Louisiana, central Louisiana.
And where did she get that ambition and excitement to
I think it's in the blood
push?
of more Americans than they realize. I mean, we all come from, someone in our family was crazy enough to leave home and family and tradition and all that when it was a lot harder to stay in touch. And you couldn't hop on a plane to go home and all that. But my mom's family, they're French, and they just kind of had this wanderlust and whatever. They all came. My mom is the only one that still lives in that town, and after being gone very far away, but all the other ones scattered to different places around the country. So that's what started it.
Wait, your mom's Belgian or French?
My mom's American, but her father is French American. He was like second generation American French.
Wait, so where'd the Belgian come from?
We just were living there for work.
Oh, okay.
But that was my home. I mean, from 4th grade through 11th grade, we'd come home every summer to central Louisiana. We'd come back to New Orleans for a week, but we rented our house out. So New Orleans was just like a little snapshot. I knew I was from here. The only memories I had of New Orleans, how hysterical, really indicative of the interest that I would have. But the only two memories I had of New Orleans itself, three, I guess. I remember Audubon Park and the ferry trip going there. But the other two memories I had were of going to standing in a Mardi Gras parade, freezing my tail off, standing in the tailpipe of a truck to stay warm, just going, this is not my idea of a good time. But then there was that antique store on Royal Street that has all the guns, all the muskets,
not yours.
and
yeah,
but
in
all
the
that
400
military.
block.
I thought you were going to say the Mosses. They have an antique
Right,
store in
right.
the 300 block, right? 200 block.
400 block and 300 block. But that shop,
That's
I
right
loved
near
that
Shane,
as a kid.
what's the name of the? You know the name of that?
I can't remember.
That's
but
the
it was,
greatest place, though, with all the swords in the
military,
windows and all the
I
coins and all that.
I walked back when I was 18 or 19 and walked by that store and said, "Oh my God, I know this. This is." So I mean, and then that leading into working with Stephen Ambrose, but growing up in Belgium, I mean, we skied every year on the mountain that Hitler's house was on. The hotel we stayed in, the bunker system connected over to Hitler's bunker underground. I mean, it was all there, and I mean, we lived in Waterloo, Belgium, where Napoleon was defeated. I mean,
Right.
you could go to the farmhouse where they still have the
Inspiration
table
for the
where
ABBA
he planned
song.
the battle. It's all there. So I got hooked. I got hooked like crazy. How could I not be? So we went to all these places. There was a guy from our church that was in Dutch intelligence in World War II. And he was part of the whole, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie A Bridge Too Far.
No.
It was 3 airborne drops. It was in Band of Brothers as well, but Bridge
Okay.
Too Far is this huge movie in '76, like the who's who of actors. Michael Keane or Michael J. Not Michael J. Fox. Michael Caine.
Michael
Not
Caine, yeah.
Bigger names. Michael
Right.
Caine, Robert Redford. My God, I can't even. Ryan O'Neal. It was just Sean Connery. It was the who's who of
Right.
celebrities acting this, but it was this really failed invasion of taking these 3 bridges and going into the Netherlands, and the British got the short end of the stick, and it was Montgomery's plan, and he got them all killed. But anyway, we did all this when I was in junior high with this guy that was part of the intelligence operation there with my father. So from a really early age, I was doing all that. So yeah, when I got to UNO, I was taking courses, and I got to take a class under Stephen Ambrose. And he was just awesome. This old salty dog up there,
Right.
just
Now,
with
what
his
year would
gravelly
this be?
voice. God, I don't even remember. I would say early 90s.
Early 90s.
Early to
okay.
mid-90s.
Because when did he die? He died around 2000, didn't he?
2001 or 2, I want to say. I was
Okay.
teaching school, and I
So
found
he
out
was
the
already a
news.
celebrity, basically, by
Not yet,
1990.
not
oh,
when
about
I
to
was,
become
no,
one. Okay.
It was before.
So he was only a celebrity like 10 years or less.
He
huh?
was a celebrity after Band of Brothers.
Okay.
When Tom Hanks bought the rights to that, I was working with him at the time. This was after being a teaching assistant for him and all that. But Tom Hanks bought the rights to that book. He also bought Citizen Soldiers. Ambrose had 3 books on the bestseller list at the same time. He had Undaunted Courage, Citizen Soldiers, and then Band of Brothers was doing well too. But he bought Band of Brothers, and I think he had read it while he was researching for his role in Saving Private Ryan. I don't remember the exact story, but that's when it really just blew up. But Undaunted Courage was, if I'm not mistaken, that was a big one. But then when Saving Private Ryan came out, Spielberg brought on Stephen Ambrose, and Ambrose trekked around with him on these press junkets, and he was, this is a historical film, all that, just making sure everything went right.
Okay, so when were you involved with Ambrose? Like before this and then through some of this, or before this?
I was before, as a teaching assistant, then I became his personal manager, and just worked in the office handling fan mail, and I coordinated his schedule on his, he would go all over the place.
Like trimming his toenails and like, what are you doing?
No. I would
like walking his dog.
I did that. I've done that before. Yeah. No, like handling his mail and his schedule. So he would get
like
all
everything.
He was making several $1,000s a lecture.
Wow.
No band. Great gig as a musician. Not towing around a band or anything. It's just him. And he would go do the lecture, and I would coordinate. Okay, someone cut him off so he doesn't look like he's the rude guy at certain points, whatever. And I would coordinate from A to B to C all the way down the line.
So how long did that last? How many years did you do that?
I was on it for about 6 months, and then he was in an accident. He was injured and couldn't write, or he had all these writing obligations, so he was doing rehab. I used to drive him on that road that's now the Stephen Ambrose Parkway. First time I saw it, I got all choked up. I was like, Dad, because he was an awesome figure to me. He was a mentor and a friend. But I would take him to therapy sessions in Slidell, physical therapy. But he wrote my letter of recommendation. Actually, I wrote it, but he made me write it, and I was like, okay, when am I going to get this? That he personally sent to Steven Spielberg for me to go work on Band of Brothers.
Oh, so you did after that, right?
So I did. I took that job and went to L.A., and that started like this trek in that whole direction.
So what did you do for Spielberg?
I was a researcher on that.
Okay, so you're going to the library every day. What do you like? What does that look like?
Talking to veterans, making sure stories were straight, like the story about Spears gunning down a bunch of soldiers. Some of these guys are really reluctant to talk, but having grown up over there and going to all these battlefields at such an early age, and I read every book I could. My allowance money was always on that, so it just made sense, and I got into that, and I could just relate to them. Some of the screenwriters, some of them were great guys that really understood it, but other ones were more political creatures, and there's an ugly side to Hollywood. I don't care how great the story is, whatever, but I mean, there were some things that one would see on that and go, oh my God, not on such a great show, but it's Hollywood. But
so you're interacting mostly with the screenwriters? Is that what you were doing?
With the veterans.
With the veterans,
and then with the screenwriters. But if they had something for me, like find out what happened in this or that case, and they would do the transcriptions of all the conversations, and so I'd just talk to these guys for hours, and then getting them to deliver photos to us about, what does this look like? What did that look like? On and on and on.
How long did that gig last?
That was like a 6-month gig.
Okay, cool.
But then in the process of that, I always had this right brain, left brain split about these two interests. But all the while doing that, while working as a teacher in law, even I was always doing restaurants as well.
Wait. Teacher of law?
No, I was a teacher, but my mom and others were saying, well, you should go into law. You're very smart. You're very capable, all that. But I just wasn't crazy about it when I saw what it did to people day after day and all that. I mean, there are certainly some great lawyers I know, but every time I worked in law, I was just like, this is not what I want to do with my life. I want to be happy. I want to do things that I really am passionate about. And I like the study of law, and I like the argument of law, but in terms of the day in, day out practice, it's a whole different story. But I was always doing restaurant stuff at the same time, on the weekends or whatever.
Okay, so
what do you mean doing restaurant stuff on the weekends?
I was just always working in restaurants. I loved hospitality. It's why I'm really happy about the tour company, because it's pulling all of them together. But I always, I never realized how much it affected me growing up in Europe, because what do you have you don't know any other way till you kind of get back and you have time to process through all that and realize what it's done to you. But the restaurants and food were always just amazing things for me. And growing up overseas, seeing all these different cultures and trying all this food. My best friends growing up in Belgium were from Peru. The mother was from Peru. The father was the vice president of ITT in Europe. He was from Brooklyn. Old school Italian American. So I had this awesome Italian American New York experience growing up with this family. But the mom would make all these insane South American dishes that I didn't even remember. And then many later years, I ran into her and we were getting some food, and I ordered some ceviche. David, when you were a little boy, I used to give you ceviche, and I didn't even realize half this stuff, just all the different influences I had. So food, I started out on Bourbon Street at this little place was a guy I was in college with at UNO who was making a ton of money, and I was like, "What are you doing? What?" And he was bartending. So you should come get a job. So I started doing that.
What kind of place was that?
Oh, it was a New Orleans restaurant. It's a shame it's not there anymore. It's called Seaport Cafe, but they had a New Orleans Dixieland jazz band, and it was awesome. Like the Chic of Araby, these old cats from Chalmette, and it was just beautiful. Now it's all daiquiri shops. And things.
So what part of Bourbon Street was that? It was right in the middle of the.
200 block, huh?
4 or 5. I don't. It was past Chris Owens, before Pat O'Brien's, somewhere in there. I can't remember what the name of the big spot is there, but I did that. House of Blues. I did a couple other restaurants, but I was on the House of Blues opening team, and then they had some really good training. I started out as a waiter there before I started getting into the production side, but was a waiter and just loved it. But we had a really good menu at the beginning.
So that's when it first started.
Very
chef?
beginning.
Who was the
Sam
chef?
McCord. But we had Thai sticks. You had like a little hibachi on the plate with a cast iron skillet and a little sterno, and you had 3 marsala ones and 3 curry ones with a peanut dipping sauce and a coconut or a yogurt dipping sauce. You just had some really cool things on the menu. We started getting wine classes, and I started to realize, hey, I kind of really like this stuff. So I did that for a bit. And then when I went to California, I kind of stepped away from that, but came back, and I was just like, I'll never roll silver again. I'll never want to do all that. But then I found myself kind of having a hankering for it, and I was in Fort Lauderdale after I taught school for a bit, working for this guy whose mom was the Peruvian. He moved to Fort Lauderdale. This guy who grew up, he spent 11 years overseas. He runs a big event company in Fort Lauderdale. He needed some help with some projects, so I went and was doing some legal work for a law firm there, but I started working food again and started working on weekends at this restaurant, Johnny Vincenz. He's been on Iron Chef and some different challenges. Phenomenal South Florida chef. Phenomenal. We had a 50 cheese menu. We had wines that were $3,000, $4,000 a bottle. It was, Fort Lauderdale was you talk about some money. People's boats there worth more than the best houses here in New Orleans, practically. It was pretty crazy.
And when was that?
That was somewhere in the 90s, after Band of Brothers, before moving back here.
Okay. And then when did you move back here?
New Orleans, been back for about 3 years now.
3 years, okay.
I opened 2 restaurants here when I first came back.
Which ones were they?
One was Mike's East West.
Oh, Mike's East West. I know that. That's on St. Charles by right off of Fortress, kind of near Lafayette Square. There's still there's something else now, different name, but I thought it was still Mike's or something.
Jimmy Vegas, some kind of Ruby Vegas, some sort of steakhouse.
All right. It had something in between.
So it was.
That, yeah.
I remembered them. I'd eaten there once when I'd been living here before.
That was very experimental and so forth.
It was
kind of weird. Yeah.
Mike's a great chef. He's got some really great things, but I don't know that the vision or the execution and all that was there. They came in right as the Saints won the Super Bowl, so it was pretty.
I remember I went there with my wife for lunch, and there was shimmering curtains everywhere inside the restaurant. It was kind of blocking your view of the rest of the restaurant, but you could sort of see through them, and it was kind of odd. It was why do I need my privacy here? What's going on?
It had a lot of potential to be really like this avant-garde, she sort of thing, but that area can also be a bit of a no man's land because you're not necessarily no man's land. I mean, Herb Saint is right there, and Herb Saint does really well.
Yeah,
but
it's courthouses.
But as a bar or whatever, I mean, there's either you're close to the warehouse district or you're somewhere in the heart of the quarter. I don't know.
So what was the other place you helped
Then
start?
I opened up a place called Maison 923, which is with the chef de cuisine from
right. That was
Emerald's.
very ambitious and right.
It was great, but there was just some insane mismanagement in that end, and I just got away from all that. And I was really loving fine dining, but there was just a lot of.
So you went to Jaque Imo's from there?
Well, that was a guy that was working under me that had been the wine director at Emerald's at some point, but he was one of the captains or whatever, and he was down there. I was actually going to go interview to go work at Oak. There was a management position there, and I was going to look to go work at Oak.
Which opened maybe 2 years ago or so.
Yeah, and it was right around that time, and I went and my friend Randy, who lives right up the street from Jaque, was like, Dave, just come in and apply. And he went up and talked to Jack, and that was an insane experience. I mean, Jack, I've never.
Is that the first time you met Jack?
Yeah. In fact, I didn't even meet him when I got hired, and that angered a lot of the staff members at the beginning because Randy had a really good rapport because Jack had this reputation for being really tough, and that Jack could be erratic, and Jack could. I mean, I heard all these things about people saying, watch out for Jack, watch out. Jack is an awesome guy. He's a phenomenal owner, and I worked for this restaurateur, Cindy Paulson, in Napa Valley for 6 months. She owns Mustard's Grill, and she had a great little place called Cindy's Backstreet Kitchen. But I've had a good broad cross section of things and seeing it on the ground level too,
Right.
But
so
Jack,
how's that different from opening a restaurant? What was it like to open a restaurant when you were there from the very beginning of Mike's East West and Maison?
Well, the gamble it goes two ways. It's definitely a double-edged sword. Anyone that's done it knows it. I mean, there's a lot of excitement and ownership in opening a place, as House of Blues was. Phenomenal team spirit, great thing. I mean, first 5 years we opened, I was there, and it was nothing like it. And we still, like I said, we're family, but it was creating something that was really great. But in the case of something where you don't necessarily know how intelligent the owners or the direction is going to be or what decisions they may make, I mean, the advantage is, as a waiter, you're going to get the right schedule. You're not going to have to grunt through 15 doubles and brunches and all these shifts that you don't want to do. You're going to have the choice shifts right off the bat. If you're capable and all that, you'll have your Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday night sort of thing, you know? So there was that. When I got to Jaque Imo's, and I'm working with guys that are 20 years younger than me, and I mean, I got hammered because they were just going to test me and tweak me and push me just to see, but I was not about to leave.
A place is always so busy. I mean, I've never been in it once or it wasn't completely full. So,
well, that almost worked against us because it's gotten so busy, or had a reputation for being so busy that we've had in the 2.5 years that I've been there, because I started in Midsommar of 2.5 years ago. Because it'll be 3 years in July that I've been there, and we've had days where it's just not nearly the speed we're used to, where people could have easily walked in and had a table in 15 minutes. So I think that perception got so strong that people just said, well, you got to go there, but be prepared, and people just kind of didn't think of it as an option to go and do.
Interesting. Huh.
But he's got a brilliant way that he runs the ship there. Like we have no management there.
Huh.
It's Jack and us. Huh. And it's some kind of hybrid of Lord of the Flies meets Little House on the Prairie. I don't know how
explain that. Sorry. How is it like? I don't think of Little House on the Prairie when I think of Jack. Like, how's that Little House on the Prairie?
Jack is he's a really good owner. He really cares about the staff.
So he's like Michael Land in that way. Is that what you're getting at? Okay. No. All right.
Yeah, but he's got his little side that everyone knows him for and loves him for. So Jack he fits the bill. I mean, he's one of my favorite scenes of him. It was St. Patrick's Day, and there was some guy going up and down Oak Street with a bagpipe, and he was practicing this. I think he was setting himself up for it. I don't know the whole deal, but he, leading up to St. Patrick's Day, and sure enough, it was St. Patty's Day, and he put on his kilt, and I don't even know if
Jack did?
No, this guy in his
this guy,
neighborhood.
okay.
He
So
comes
Jack's
up the street.
Italian. He's not.
Well, I don't even know if the Irish play bagpipes. Maybe they do, but I mean, I'm a Campbell like this. I know the Scots do, but anyway, who cares? He's coming up the street in a bagpipe. That's close enough for most Americans.
Yeah.
Jack's like, come in here. Grabs a bottle of Jameson, stack of Go Cups, and goes stomping off into the back like the little Travelocity troll, the guy, and with the bagpipe guy behind him, and come on everybody, and just pouring shots. I mean, but that guy, people love Jack. I mean, a restaurant is very reflective of the kind of owner it has, and I've worked for many different people, and there are people that say, "Oh, I know this story about Jack, that story." Like he's as good he's a good guy, and
let me ask you a question about him. And don't say anything. You don't answer anything you're not comfortable
Sure.
with. But I've never been there late. I've been to Jaque Imo's a dozen times, but I've never been there after about 7 or 8 because I always try to go early to get a table, or else we're going over to Maple Leaf, whatever. Does he make it to the end of the night because he's so high energy early on? Like, is he around at midnight and stuff, running around the restaurant the same way?
Sometimes he doesn't make it. Sometimes he does, and if he does, it's pretty impressive because he does. I mean, and I could see where working for, I don't know how many. He opened in '96 now. How many years is that?
Something like that. Yeah, so it'd be 17 years. Yeah,
that's a lot of time and that many people. But he still gets it and he still loves it. But to go through that long, or he'll go upstairs and he's got a gorgeous office upstairs. It's beautiful. Got his beautiful leather couch and all of his cookbooks and everything. And he really is a foodie. He's a huge foodie.
Right.
And he'll come back downstairs.
He trained under Chef Austin here in New Orleans too. It was big, iconic.
Yeah. In fact, and I didn't say this either, but here's an example of how great Jack is. So I started this tour company up, and he knows me enough, and he's seen my interest and my passion. And the great thing about working at Jaque is we have all these foodies that come through, and he is going to come on this tour, and he's going to cook a meal. We're one of the stops. A lot of people do these history tours, but I got to do a tour for the Wounded Warrior Project last summer, and I had the board of directors, the CEO, the CFO, and 4 amputees.
Here in New Orleans?
No, in Europe.
Oh, in Europe, okay.
We did Verdun and Bastogne.
So Jack's going to go to Europe?
Jack's going to Europe on this trip with me.
What in the world? Okay.
And we're going to cook for the staff and the wounded at the hospital in Landstuhl, where these guys come in off the plane, mangled beyond belief, from Iraq and Afghanistan, and that's part of the trip. That's going to be one of our events.
When are you doing that?
May 29th to June the 9th.
Is that booked already?
It's filling up. And
right.
I'm keeping it small, but I've just been getting the word out on it.
Website.
Yeah. I'll give that to you. Yeah,
Wow,
I've been finishing up the details on it, but it's beer and battlefields.
Wow. So
it's
is
history of
Giacomo's
food.
going to be able to function without him there? With no management?
Yeah. He's done well with his staff. Like
Okay.
the kitchen, I've never seen a kitchen handle that. I mean, during Jazz Fest, we have tables outside, we have tables across the street in Frenchie's Art Gallery, we have tables upstairs in
You have tables in the
Jack's
truck?
office, in the truck.
I've eaten that table in the truck before. That's kind of
We
cool.
put tables in the gallery across the street. I mean, we're
Right.
running food across the street. I mean, picnic table, but it's this zoo, and you were asking about going early or late, but to me, early you get the people that are very meticulous, and I mean it's cool because the restaurant evolves through the night as well. Because you'll have each kind of segment comes through. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
the early birders will come in early, and those are great people, and there'll be foodies that are like, we're not missing this, and they want to enjoy it. But as you get later, and then you have people that don't know what they're getting into when they come to Giacomo's, and they'll go to the bar and start drinking, waiting for a table. Bad idea sometimes if you're not ready for it or you're a rookie. So by the time they get seated, they can be a little bit, carried
Rambunctious.
away, or even get to beyond that where they're just like fried chicken. But then you have like the later night crowd, but it's actually really enjoyable at night, and we're closing up, but we don't have a closing time. Jack's doesn't close till the last ticket leaves the window.
Huh. So what time is that usually?
You never know.
Now, is that earlier or
love
later on
that.
Tuesday
He's
nights?
a
when
brilliant.
you have,
He's a brilliant owner.
You have everybody going over to Maple Leaf. Does that make it close earlier or close
Later, because you get a lot of people that'll come eat late because Maple Leaf doesn't start till like 10 o'clock.
Oh,
So
there
a
you
lot of
go,
people
right.
that'll come and eat, or even just knowing, and they'll go catch the second set, whatever. But Tuesdays are great nights there for that.
Now, what's your favorite thing to eat there? Do you ever get sick of the cornbread? The cornbread's amazing. I could eat that cornbread
Yeah,
forever.
that's
Is
pretty-
it possible to
pretty
get
sick.
sick of it? Like if you eat it every night?
I guess I don't know. I don't eat the cornbread every night.
Like I'm craving it right now just thinking about it.
I'm responsible for making people addicted to it, but we put a lot of butter on that stuff. But
That's the
it
best
is
cornbread
outstanding.
in the planet, I think.
Yeah. Favorite dishes? I mean, I've been there for 3 years, and there are 4 dishes that I quote all the time. But my favorite's the pan-fried drum with pecan meuniere. I've never had a piece of fish like that.
Right.
Meuniere's like and I say it a certain way, and it's not necessarily in what's in the dish, like in terms of larger to small, but it's lemon, butter, a tiny bit of garlic that he cooks down and then strains out because it's still a clean sauce. White wine and Worcestershire, but the drum, just a smooth, light fish, and then we crumble candied pecans over it, and you've just got about 3-4 flavors rolling through each bite. I mean, it's magnificent. Fried chicken is out of this world. It's the perfect salt and pepper crust to it, and it's like a 4-step process for how we batter and fry it, including like a wash it goes through with a tub with ice cubes with milk and salt and pepper that kind of seals it. It's like
Wait, wait a second. So the bathtub's full of ice?
it's a tub. It's a little Lexan, whatever, little metal pan with.
Oh, it's not a bathtub.
No.
I'm picturing like a clawfoot bathtub in the
Yeah,
back.
yeah.
Well, people are peeing and
Slapping
they're next to
the-
it, and they're
slapping
like
the chicken
they're
in the
slapping
milk.
chicken through it. Okay, that's a little less dramatic. But
No,
still, okay.
and then he does a steak that is just a mind blower. If you get the beauty of blue cheese and red meat,
Oh, I get
and red
that.
onion,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
the carpetbagger with
yeah. I get that a bunch. Yeah,
oysters inside. with
love
the
that. That's my
grilled
standby.
red onion, a whole slice with the blue cheese, and then we do a
Yeah, oh,
quail
man.
that's
Oh,
pretty
gee.
insane as well. It's stuff for the wild
Okay,
mushroom. foie
okay,
gras.
you got to stop this, Margot,
Sure.
or I'm gonna die. Give him the book of questions. I can't hear more
Okay.
about that food. That's making me too hungry.
We ask you, what is your favorite number?
3.
3.
You didn't give him the range. He might have thought it was 1 to 10. All right, well he's
1
sticking
to
with 3.
217, but 3. Why 3? While I'm
Why 3? I don't know. The Trinity.
I'm
all
just gonna
kinds
say
of
the
things.
Trinity.
Things come in 3s. That was actually it's sticking in my head a lot too because I've been doing work. I'm about to finish up my website, and I was talking to my graphic designer about some of the things, and I had the layout of pictures because I'm putting in all these photos of all the tours I've done on my website, and it takes a lot. I've got a lot of content, and she said 3s are best. Everything 3s, like visually, everything 3s. 3s are stronger. 3s. I'm the middle of the lower half of my family. There's 6 kids in my family, but I'm the middle of the lower 3. So I don't know. 3's stronger. Stools, whatever. 3.
Okay, if
Go
you
ahead.
like this question, then you can add 3. It does have power. Okay, if you were to die this evening with no opportunity to communicate with anyone, what would you most regret not having told someone, and why haven't you told them yet?
You can tell them now if they're listening.
Yes.
Well, you know what?
You don't have to die tonight to
I've lost.
Oh, we can arrange that. No, just kidding.
I've lost 3 best friends since like from junior high or even earlier than that. Before I was 25, before 30, and I think it really had enough of an impact on me, even with travel and all that as well. And I saw the way my mom reacted to her losing her mom. So I think I've always tried to keep that on the right level as much as possible. So I don't really feel like there's anything that's kind of part of my nature, if I ever am at odds with somebody, I want to make things right. I don't like, I don't know. I don't believe in letting the sun go down your anger, differences, or anything else. So I don't really have, I can't think of, there may be 500 people that have something to say to me. Like, oh yeah, Dave? But I really try to keep everything in good shape. So I'm always thankful for my mom and dad. Like they, especially with this tour thing and all, and realizing how much of an influence they both had on me, and kind of seeing it all finally come together. I feel like I'm 21 all over again, because it's like, these people that knew what they wanted to do when they were 21. I'm like, how the hell do you know what you want to do when you haven't seen half of the world out there yet? And for me, taking this long, but it's been a beautiful thing. So.
Now, do you have a family?
Do I have one of my own? No.
Oh, okay. Just wonder if you drag them along on all these adventures, because it sounds like you've been all over the
thank
place.
God
okay.
I don't. I don't know if I could have done all the things that I've done. It's been. I guess I'm getting to a point now that I'm honing in on that's something that could come up. But right now, I'm too excited about getting this thing off the ground. That drives me. So, yeah.
Well, that's wonderful to not have any regrets or things left unsaid.
I mean, there may be regrets, but in terms of things I couldn't say before I went, is there a regret thing in there? Is there anything I regret that I didn't do?
Well, it just said, what would you most regret not having told someone? But
Gotcha.
you answered that. You didn't. But if there was one regret, what would it be? Is that too heavy for?
No, regret of something I didn't say to someone.
Well, it doesn't have to be. Just regret for something you did say or do that you would like to.
I think for a lot of my life, I lived with regret about things that at the time didn't make sense to me. I left the Marine Corps. I was a semester away from becoming a second lieutenant in the Marines. I was on full scholarship at Tulane, and I walked away from it all. I was raised in a really religious family, and then I had this military interest, and suddenly in like my senior year of school, these two currents of me started splitting me right down the middle. And I, all this, a lot of people are very comfortable with the military, like a lot of people that are first ones to say, war, God, troops, country, and it tends to be people that can be pretty heavily religious. And for me, as I began to do more of the studies of that, I started to see Christ as a pacifist. So it kind of really wrestled with me. In the summer before I was supposed to graduate and get commissioned, I had a hernia, and I listened to Aaron Neville's cover of Bob Dylan's "With God on Our Side," and it talked about all this stuff of history. And my dad was a hardcore patriot, devout Southern Baptist, but also was a Marine, and he never saw, it was all black and white to him, and I just started seeing a ton of gray, and I literally just crumbled. And then later I ended up going to seminary, and that lasted 6 months, because all my military history reading was like, you cannot believe that God knows all the numbers of hairs on your head and all these other things when you've known how many people have died, the way they've died, all that. Like if you read about Verdun and the Battle of Verdun, and over 900,000 casualties in 10 months of fighting, over 25 square miles of land, not even 25 square miles. You get into this, and when you hold hands with stuff that can be that heavy, it'll really just grab your throat, and it's hard to let go of. And I just wanted to know, but I think that finally getting to a place where I can see it all and make peace with it all, including my faith and my background, and even the issues I have with it, that it was okay to ask questions. That it took a while to get there, but to finally be there is like, phew, like this is and doing this tour and starting to kind of feel like I'm fitting in my niche. And as people have heard about this and started to see the reviews on it, and it's all foodies that are really interested in this, from Hank at the Maple Leaf to the head of the St. James Cheese Company. And we've got some really great people that are like looking at doing this and doing some partnerships in terms of food tours. Nanu, I talked to Nanu, by the way. He wants to be on your show in April.
Oh, that'd be
awesome.
great. We'd love
I talked to him in the car. It was just last minute. So.
All right. Well, we got to wrap up in a second, but I had one more question for you.
Sure.
Well, I got 50 more questions, but there's one that's popping in my head again.
Go ahead.
So you climbed the GNO Bridge 3 times. What's
I did.
that like? Is that legal?
No.
Wow.
We did it when the.
Is it fatal? Is it often fatal? Has
That's
anyone
not
else
part of your
attempted it?
tour.
No, it was all. I led 3 expeditions up there. The first time I did it, and then true to my nature, I led 2 more expeditions.
What do
up
you
there.
use to climb the GNO Bridge? Do you have tools?
No.
You do this bare-handed? What's going on?
My parents lived on the West Bank. I would go across the bridge every so often. I was living in Mid-City. I had a roommate that was a road crew for Temple. He was here getting his master's in physical education, or master's of education at UNO. And we'd go over the bridge, and we would look and check out the new bridge that was built and finishing up, and they had the roads, but they had the right side of the lanes were not yet open. They were closed off. And you could see on the outside of the main girders, you can see these staggered sections of ladders going up with the cage around the back. And you couldn't fall out of this thing if you tried. You'd literally have to jump like 6 inches off the back of the rung and do like perfectly straight. You'd only fall 20 feet and hit the platform of that. So we could see that we could climb it. So one day, what the easiest way to get a male to do anything is to call him a nice, not a nice
You
word
can
for
say
a female,
it. This is late night.
Wait! Don't make him do it. This will
okay.
be the first episode we've ever had where somebody didn't swear.
My buddy
I
said.
didn't force them to
My buddy
swear.
said, "Don't
He
be a
doesn't-
pussy." Or Dave, what do you?
Now we've done it.
So I was like, okay, fine. Or like,
trying to
no,
have an
no,
episode
no,
I can let my kids
sit
listen
some-
to.
Did you wet your panties or something? I was like, okay, you want to climb this thing? So we parked. We ran up the off ramp, got out. We climbed up. I was like, we climb out on the girders, and there's the city. It's the most amazing view of the city. It was amazing.
And
He
you
had
did
his
it 3
camera.
times.
Well, I did it. And I came back and I was telling people about it. And like, oh, that's a bunch of crap. There's no way. I'm like, dude, we want to do it. We want to do it. And I was in the Marines. I was in ROTC, all that. It was after I'd gotten out, but my friends were still in. So I did 2 more expeditions to the top.
So you're
bridge.
like New Orleans version of that French Spider-Man,
No.
the guy that like
But I
climbs
grew
the
up-
Eiffel Tower and stuff.
We spent every summer in the country in Central Louisiana. And I climbed every tree there was. I mean, it's just why not? I did the tower right behind the Hard Rock Cafe as well in the French Quarter. I challenged a friend of mine to do it. He did it. I couldn't let him do it and not do it myself, so I had to go with him. But that huge electrical tower, that gigantic one. So it's got a big.
I
cage
gotta
around
think of
now.
some other things for you to climb now. This is good. There's nothing around here though. What would it be here? You could climb the beer mug.
It's not spinning.
No,
not spinning tonight.
My climate days are over.
All right. Well, they're scraping down the grill now in the back in the kitchen, so I think we need to close. But it's been so wonderful having you. Thank you. Our special guest tonight on Midnight Menu. I'm not going to call it Midnight Menu +1 tonight because our +1 didn't show tonight. So this is a special edition of just Midnight
Save him
Menu.
the
Well,
the
you
bus.
were wonderful.
But yeah, you're about
We don't
4,
need
so-
no stinking +1 tonight.
When we got a David Campbell. All right, so
He's the talker.
It was David. Yep, it was David Campbell of GBC Tours, and you can find out more about David's GBC Tours on our website. You can follow some links there on itsneworleans.com. Our show is recorded live at Ted's Frost Hop on Claiborne Avenue in Calhoun, in Uptown New Orleans. Ted's is open 7 days a week, serving first-class burgers, beer, and their awesome homemade root beer in a frosty mug. Recipe from 1927. Midnight Menu +1 is produced by Grant Morris. Brian Ruiz is our technical director. You can get in touch with us here at Midnight Menu +1 by going to our website, itsneworleans.com. From there, you can follow us on Twitter, find us on Facebook, and sign up for our mailing list. And while you're at itsneworleans.com, you can listen to other episodes of Midnight Menu +1, as well as our other shows, Happy Hour, Mindset, True to the Game, Win-Win, and Out to Lunch. If you're listening to the show on iTunes, thanks for subscribing, and maybe you could just take a minute to rate and review us, and that'll help other people find us. Midnight Menu +1 is a production of INO Broadcasting for itsneworleans.com. So we meet again here at Ted's Frost Hop. I'm Ray Canada.
And I'm Margot Moss.
Good night.
You know Labor Day signals the unofficial end of summer, but not the end of your outdoor projects. Lowe's helps you do it right and helps you save with Labor Day deals throughout the store. Shop now and get 2 bags of Stay Green potting mix for $12. And keep your lawn looking neat and trim with a Craftsman 2-cycle 17-inch gas string trimmer, now $20 off at just $119. Whatever's still on your to-do list this Labor Day, do it right for less. Start with Lowe's. Offers valid through 8/28. Soil offer excludes Alaska and Hawaii, U.S. only.